Welcome to you. Lovely to see you all. My name is Karina Szczurek. I'm a writer and a publisher based in Cape Town, and I have the honor to speak to these amazing authors this afternoon. On my very left is Zibu Sithole, and we will be speaking today about I Do, Don't I? Then in the middle is Damilare Kuku, all the way from Nigeria. And I would like to extend a special welcome to you and to Hamza, because the festival makes a huge effort to include as many writers from the continent as possible. And it's so wonderful to have you here with us. And we will be speaking today about her second book, Only Big Bum Bum Matters Tomorrow. And then on my near left is Hamza Koudri, all the way from Algeria. So welcome. So lovely to have you here. First time in Cape Town and first time in South Africa.
Yeah, thank you so much for the welcome.
I hope first of many.
Yeah. I hope so too.
And we are speaking today about sand roses. Obviously, what these books have in common, that they have very strong sister relationships at their center. But what I found so intriguing in preparation for this session was that even though these sister relationships are very much molded and embedded by the cultural contexts that they are happening in, they are universal. So anybody who has siblings, it doesn't matter what your background is, these are the kind of stories that anyone who has siblings or cousins will be able to relate to. And I think that's the beauty of literature and storytelling, that no matter how diverse we might be, at the end of the day, we have all these universal truths in common. And sisterhood or siblinghood is one of them. And this is what can bring us together. These two novels, so Sand Roses and Only Big Bum Bum Matters Tomorrow, are debut novels, and Zibu's is a sequel to a book that she presented with us here last year. So very prolific, second book, second year, amazing, and it's the sequel to The Thing with Zola. Those of you who met Zibu last year, you will know that she's a journalist and a ghostwriter, and under different names she writes completely different work, and I hope that she will tell us a little bit about that just now. And she has also written for other media. But tell us, as a way of introduction, what does writing mean in your life, in all its forms?
So writing for me is both work and play. It is entertainment, it's therapy. In a lot of my writing, a lot of it that is not published, I get to explore my feelings. You know, when you write something down, you're able to break it down, reread it, and hear it back so that you can reflect on it, delve into it. And I use that in my personal life and also professionally. It helped a lot with journalism. You can write from a better human interest perspective when you yourself understand your feelings and can empathize with people. I prefer that style of journalism rather than just reporting. I want to be able to empathize, to feel what people feel, to get feelings across, which is also great in fiction. Especially since I'm not a journalist anymore. I do write content. Now I get to explore hypothetical feelings and feelings I assume people have without anybody suing me. That is the beauty of fiction. In my ghostwriting, I get to explore the things that I am not confident enough to put under my own name yet. Themes of fantasy and erotica, a lot of erotica that I am not comfortable owning yet, but still want to get paid for. That is my ghostwriting career.
I just want to mention that with a title like this, I Do, Don't I, and with a kind of diamond proposal ring on the cover, there is a little bit of eroticism here under her own name.
Just a little.
Yeah. Damilare, you also work in all kinds of media, and you are the author of another book that is not a novel, and it is a super best-selling, Nearly All the Men in Lagos Are Mad. With a title like that, I suppose it had to become a bestseller. Can you tell us, though, a little bit as a way of introduction about your other very famous career?
Okay. I'm also an actor. I am a director for theater. Acting, I've done a couple of films with Netflix. I find that with my career, even now that I'm thinking about it, I've always spoken, represented, written about women. So with the theater, I have a production called Efusheto Aniwura. Nigeria, it's about this woman who had slaves, and she would kill any slave that had children under her. So if you were her slave and you had children, she would kill you, she would kill the child, and she would kill the person who impregnated you. So she became so popular in Nigeria. She was such a terror, and everyone kept looking for ways to kill her. Eventually, they found a way to poison her, and she died. So that's the theater production of Efusheto Aniwura she passed, and that I've directed. And for film, I've done a couple of projects, Castle and Castle, Wildflower. I've done an epic, Ibinogun. So yes, I have been, in different parts of the arts, basically. And then, of course, with Nearly All the Men in Lagos Are Mad. Yes, I always say this because I know that Nearly All the Men in Lagos Are Mad has this wild reputation of being an international bestseller. But Only Big Bombo Matters Tomorrow also sold out in a day in Nigeria and in a day in Ghana. So let's give my baby some love. So yeah, so that's
so
it. Thank
3 literary stars and 1 movie star. Hamza, you work as your day job in education and in international development. You also work with the British Council in Algeria. And education and social equity are close to your heart, but so is literature. And Sand Roses is your debut novel, and it has a very interesting connection with South Africa. Can you tell us what that connection is?
Correct, and I think that's what makes it very special for me to be here at Open Book Festival in Cape Town. Like I said, I work in international development, specifically working on workforce development and education. And so that's a job that keeps me super busy, but literature and writing has always been sort of my playtime. I wake up at 5 a.m. to write, and it gives me that sort of like me time when I'm actually exploring stories and characters, especially history. Sand Roses is a project I started about around 2015, 2016, when I first discovered a part of the Algerian history that nobody talks about. It's this tribe of dancers that used to be very famous in Algeria, across the Mediterranean, in Europe. At one point, they traveled all the way to Chicago, but then they fell from sort of modern day history because of conservative thoughts, but also at one point it was dangerous for them. And so when I was exploring that story, I didn't really think that was, because I have always been writing, but I never thought that one book is going to make it to publication until the Island Prize came along. And that's a prize that was started by a beloved South African writer, Karen Jennings. And it's a prize for unpublished writers from all over Africa. So I did participate in that. When it was longlisted, I already felt like a winner. I was like, wow, Karen Jennings is reading my book. And then eventually I was the runner-up for that prize. And that's how I got the first offer of publication. And it's been really amazing to see people, not only in Algeria, but also like in the UK and in Nigeria and now in South Africa, learn a little bit about the Algerian history and this specific part of my country that people don't really talk about a lot.
We are going to talk about complex sibling relationships, but in order to go into the details, and for those readers in the audience who have had no opportunity to read your stories, can you give us a brief outline what they are about? So you already mentioned the dancers with Damilare. Well, it's kind of in the title. It's about a big bum bum and wanting to have one, but it's about so much more.
Okay, so I'm just gonna, there was something that happened last week on Twitter, last weekend. Bum Bum went viral because somebody, she grabbed the screenshot of the prologue and put it online, and that sort of started a war because people, she said, I remember she wrote, "What in God's name is this? This cannot be a book." So that's it, she put it, and I didn't even know, and then someone sent it to me. And then I saw under it, maybe like 2 people agreed with her, and so I was like, no, I'm not about to let someone ruin my weekend, so I just closed it. But I think like a day later, my sister now sent it to me and said, hey, have you seen this thing about Bum Bum? And then I went online, and the first response I saw was somebody wrote to her, I don't blame you. It's because you have a bot. That is why you can come for a book titled Only Big Bum Bum Matters Tomorrow. I grew up without a bum bum, so this book matters to me. That's literally, that was what she wrote, that whole thing. And then people under her started writing, I don't blame you, you don't know what happened to us. This book is about girls like me that didn't have what society expected us to have. So in short, Bum Bum is about a girl who says to her family members after her father dies that she wants to fix her butt. She makes the announcement at the will reading. They finish announcing the will, giving people the different properties that they are assigned to, and then she says, oh, by the way, just so we are clear, I'm going to fix my butt, I'm going to leave home, and hopefully I will meet the love of my life. And that's it. So her family members, everyone starts to rattle around, what's wrong with you, what's wrong with you? And she keeps answering them with, I hear you, but I will fix my butt. I hear you, but I'm going to fix my butt. And then we start to delve into the different women and how beauty standards did not start from here. It has been from way back. Our parents don't put a name to it because they didn't know that was it. In my part of the world, if you're not shapely, you're looked at, something is wrong with you. And then there's a part where if you're skinny, if you're not skinny enough, there's something wrong with you. It's where does it end? So with Bum Bum, it's almost like the question I'm asking is, of course only big Bum Bum doesn't matter. That's not what should matter. It's not what I look like that should matter. It's what I bring to the table as a human being. And the fact that this girl, despite the fact that her father has just passed, which she's going through a lot, but all she cares about, and she tells her mom, she says, I will process the grief of my father after I have fixed my butt. That's it.
Yeah. Zibu, your novel is a sequel, and obviously from the title one knows that your protagonist from the first novel, Zola, she in the first novel she was finding her way in the professional world and also in relationships, in friendships, and also romantically. Now we encounter her, she is a very successful professional, and well, maybe it's time to bring that relationship that she has started to the next level. But what else is happening?
It is largely when wedding fever hits and everybody is thinking and talking about getting married. People who shouldn't get married start talking and thinking about getting married, start looking to get married, even though everyone, including themselves, know it will be a disaster. People who are married start looking at their marriages differently. And because we are in South Africa, marriage looks very different for different cultures and different groups. There are ideas of polygamy. We have people who are already married wanting to get married. And even though a lot of us understand it as abstractly, like it's culture, it's okay, when it's happening in your home, when your grown-up children are watching their mother fall apart because their father, who is married and has been always married to their mother, wants to get married again. It gives a different view of marriage. So I Don't I explores marriage, relationships within the marriage, because it's not just the people who are married who experience the marriage, and how different people see marriage. Because as a 30-something-year-old Zulu woman in 2024, I don't see marriage the same way my mother could have seen marriage 40 years ago. And it's complicated, and in many ways it's hilarious. It is hilarious because the people who are pushing you to get married, who want you to get married, don't understand the type of marriage you would have or would want to have.
Damilare, you write in your acknowledgements, I wrote this book while thinking of my sisters. Sisterhood is such a precious gift. So it's obvious that you have two sisters whom you name and love and thank. But what surprised me to hear from Hamza is that he not only doesn't have a sister, but he has 4 brothers. Three brothers. So you are one of 4 brothers. So how did you come to write about sisters?
Yeah, and I think a lot of the time that is one of the big questions that I get asked. And the other one is, how did I decide to write about women in the first place? And then also sort of try to capture that sisterhood and the dynamic relationship between these 2 women. I think for me, when I first wanted to start writing Sand Roses, I knew it had to be about these dancers. Just a little bit of context. The Oulad Nail, so this is a tribe that used to live in Boussaada, which is a desert town in Algeria, about 4 hours away from the capital. This city has always sort of had an inexplicable charm on a lot of artists, writers, painters and photographers. Everybody who goes there is very much captured by the whole charm of the city. And at the heart of that culture for at least a few centuries has been a tribe of Oulad Nail dancers. These are dancers who were raised to perform, to sing and dance and entertain. And then they would go to the city to work and collect a lot of money. Most often they would sort of collect a dowry and then go back to their village and marry somebody and then go on to raise the next generation of dancers. But then some of them would also travel around, like with the circus or with an artist and something like that. So it was a very sort of glamorous sort of career for some of these women. When I first heard about it, it was, you hear talk about the Oulad Nail, and then as if, it's all about the beauty of these women, but you never hear anybody talk about the culture because it has been hidden for so long. So for me, the objective was to write about them, and then I couldn't write about these Oulad Nail dancers without writing from the point of view of women. And so my protagonists had to be 2 sisters who go from their village and go to the city of Boussaada with these big dreams of sort of succeeding in a career as dancers. And so at the heart of that is their different views of, so one of them sees success as, I'm just gonna go work, collect my money, and then go back and marry my betrothed. She has a fiance, sort of, waiting for her back in the village. She goes back, that's her own objective. The other one has more sort of, ideas of grandeur. She wants to meet an artist who's going to paint her, and she's going to travel to Europe, to other places with her painting. So she has these really big ideas. And so that's, when I first started writing, I didn't think, I'm going to have to capture the relationship of sisters. But then as I started, I was like, well, I have to do some research because, I don't have sisters. But as we were saying earlier, too, I think, in a lot of parts of Africa, you also grow up around cousins and aunts. So I spent a lot of time with my grandparents, and so my mom has 6 sisters, and it's very much sort of watching the relationship is a big part of our daily life. And so you see a lot of those elements, and then you do your research too, you have your cousins, but also I think some elements of having a sibling, I think would apply to a lot of people. One thing I always think about is, I'm pretty sure anybody here can identify with is, rule number one, I get to beat up my brother or sister, I get to bully them, nobody else gets to do that. And I think that applies to like a lot of relationships like that.
Yeah, I think that there is a very strong element exactly of this happening between the two sisters in your novel. There, the situation is a little bit more complex because they are a few years apart, and one of them is estranged from the family. But when they were growing up, they had a very similar experience. Can you tell us about that?
Oh, so Ladu and Temi are... they're very interesting people because they're similar, but they're not so similar. I remember there's a line in the book where Temi says to her that I can stay in silence with you, and I'm not uncomfortable. And that's the thing about sisterhood. For those of us in the room that have siblings, they are the friends that accompany you from the womb, that you might not necessarily like, but you love them. We don't necessarily always like our siblings. I mean, if you weren't related to them, you'd be like, if I wasn't related to you, I'm not sure I would particularly speak with you, you know? There's that part. So Ladu and Temi, with Ladu, you know, because Ladu left the house for 5 years. You know, she was gone for 5 years. And then she thought the person she left 5 years ago is the person she will meet. How can you leave your sister for 5 years and think she'll be the same person? Even if you're speaking on the phone for 5 years, by the time you meet her, you're going to be meeting a completely different person. You're going to have to learn her way. So by the time she gets home, and then there's that announcement where Temi says, I'm going to fix my bum. She's surprised because she's like, I didn't get that from anything. And when she tries to have a conversation with her, she can see that part where Temi is feeling betrayed. When you're 2, not 3, not 4, when you're 2 children, and one person leaves the house without telling you, there's some sort of anger that you hold against her. Because you're like, we're supposed to be doing life together. And you chose to just bow out because things got uncomfortable. And now that I'm making this life-changing announcement, you're coming to me and saying, I should not. You don't have a right. Just because you're my sister, no. What you have is maybe see me through that journey. And this time around, don't bail. So that thing is, there's a lot of, they love each other, but there's a lot of unspoken resentment because when you leave someone, it's like ghosting. When someone ghosts you and they come back 4-5 months later, they're like, hi. You're like, okay, so why did you go for 5 months? Now going for 5 years, that's a big deal. So Ladu has a lot to, I think she knows she has a lot to make up for because she's also very conscious of her errors, but I don't think you fix mistakes for 5 years in a week. So that's the thing that has with their relationship. It's very complicated.
And also, Ladun has what also their mother has and the aunties have. They all have the bum that Abby desires. So that makes her sort of a bit alone in the family.
Yeah, that's that part. There's that part where she also feels, you know, she says it to them. She says to them, all of you look alike except me. You all have big bums. You all look like the women on TV that I'm seeing. I'm the only one who doesn't look like that. So why can't I fix it if there is a way to fix it? And Ladun, but what she doesn't understand is Ladun doesn't want to look like that. Ladun is not okay with the fact that her bum and her boobs have attracted unwanted attention to her. So it's if they could sit and talk, which is the one thing we don't do in African society, I dare say, we don't have uncomfortable conversations. We have conversations that we gloss under. Imagine sitting towards and saying, hi, so I was gone for 5 years. Between that 5 years, I had an abortion. Within that 5 years, I got engaged to a thief. Within that 5 years, that's all the things that happened to her. And within that 5 years, I worked at a nightclub. And then Temi says, within the 5 years that you were gone, I got bullied. My butt was slapped many times. I was called ugly. I went viral on the internet for my body type. Can we have conversations like that with our siblings? I don't think we can, because people are like, we're family, let's just sweep it under the rug. And that's what keeps damaging the sibling relationships that people have.
Well, Open Book is the place to have difficult conversations, as we all know. So thank you so much for opening up these spaces to have them. Zibu, you also only have a brother, and yet at the center of your novel are these two amazing sisters who are growing up with a single mother. And Sola and Tubile have a special relationship. Can you tell us about that relationship? There is also an age gap.
Yes.
and what is happening that they need to now pull together?
So the idea of sisterhood, the way I saw it and expressed it in The Thing with Zola and I Do, Don't I, is sisterhood born from shared experiences. Because we have, churchgoers have sisters in Christ. You know, we have your work bestie is kind of like your work sister. So the relationship between sisters is in many cases like holding a mirror up to yourself, where you can find where you are lacking, hold yourself accountable or be held accountable by somebody you love, trust, and expect to have your best interest at heart. What complicates the relationship between Zola and Thobile is the idea of abandonment again. Because while Zola was chasing her dreams, she abandoned her responsibility to her sister. She did not see herself as accountable to her sister. She did not play the role of an older sister to Thobile. And even when she came back, she was very individualistic. She was still very goal-oriented, not I want us to succeed, but I want to succeed. I am Zola, I want this, I want that. She forgot about her sister, she forgot about her mother. But in I Do, Don't I, she's forced, she's confronted by her sister's rebellion. When her sister turns on the mother, because if you're a bad daughter, you're a neglectful daughter, someone else has to pick up the slack. And that's the balance you get with the sister. So if you're not into affection, the first child isn't into affection, the second daughter has to be into affection. You need to balance each other. And Thobile in this book is sick of carrying the slack for Uzola, and when she grows into herself and gains a personality, it's Zola's turn to carry the slack, to carry Thobile through wanting to drop out of school halfway through matric. You know, turning on the mother's crying because for the mother, education is the only way to make something of yourself. And this child now wants to go work on cruise ships. She wants to explore the world. And Zola needs to take that on and be an older sister. And in so doing, she looks closely at herself, the way she's lived her life, the kind of life she wants to live. So she's finally got that mirror. Instead of being hyper-focused on the future, she gets to see herself in the now. And I think that's the most beautiful thing about sisterhood, whether it's biological or it's a sister through experience.
Yeah, and it's also, it can be a burden, especially when you are the older sibling, because it is a huge responsibility to be that kind of role model, and also almost like a part parent to your younger sister, and especially when the mom kind of co-opts you and says, you got to help me with this. But it's a huge responsibility, and things do go wrong, especially when they are outside the country. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So Zola's whole thing, in The Thing with Zola, it starts with her coming home to South Africa, and she's got this idea that this is not what success looks like. She wants to succeed in Europe. But at the end, she gets an opportunity to work in Rwanda. So we start off with her being in Rwanda this time, and she's building a life, even though she knows this is going to be a short-lived experience. She's sort of building a life. She's got a routine. And that falls apart when Thobile arrives in Rwanda, because Thobile belongs in Phosphorus with her mother, you know? Not in this idealistic world I'm building here. I mean, the apartment was her love nest at some point when her boyfriend came to visit. And when that was happening with a boyfriend there, it was nice, it was cozy. But when your sister and her dirty sneakers are there, the apartment is suddenly too small. And these are people who've shared a room. They grew up sharing a room. But now as adults, because Thobile is only recently an adult, 18-year-olds are adults, it's tricky, it's difficult. Zola did not witness Thobile turning into this person. She was focused on herself. Now she is forced in close quarters in a foreign country where she goes to work and has her routine, but isn't a very social person. She doesn't know where she'd go if anything had gone wrong. And now Thobile is there, and Thobile is Thobilering. She is being herself in a way that Zola has never experienced before, and it's a horror for her. It's a horror for her. like being the deputy parent, like you said, now seeing what your child does when they feel free. Because we don't know each other like that. They know each other as their mother's children, and now they're experiencing each other as human beings, which is a step it's really scary for most siblings. And you never see it coming.
When we first encountered the sand roses of your novel, Fahima and Salima, they are very young. They are 14, yeah. So early teenagehood. But they are also thrust into a situation of enormous responsibility. But what makes them different to the other sibling relationships that we've been discussing is that they are very close in age, and there is something else that binds them, because we as reader encounter them as Fahima and Salima, but the people whom they encounter them as
Amaria.
Yeah.
And that is part of, I think, that is part of a trick that they use, but also becomes a problem on their relationship, because Fahima and Salima are actually twins. And so they look like they're identical twins, and then their mother sort of forces them into this trick where to the rest of the world they are just one, and because at the beginning it helps them gain more money, it helps them be more successful faster.
And they can avoid paying taxes.
That's the thing, they can avoid paying taxes, they can avoid paying sort of the owner of the sort of the house where they work. They just pay as one instead of two. So there is their mother is that kind of like financial sort of like in a way fraud, but she sort of forces them into that. And they're at the beginning we don't know if we want to do this. We don't care if it's going to be impossible for us to trick the world into believing that we're one. But then at one point their lives sort of hang on that secret, and then that's when they get really sort of to commit to the lie. But what that does to the relationship is, I think, that's one of the worst things you can do to siblings is, because siblings tend to want to stand out, and, especially, nobody wants to be compared to their brother or sister, or they want, nobody wants to be confused for another sister. And so that, I think, creates a little bit of a clash, because each one of them tries to sort of be singled out in a different way. So one of them likes to smoke, and she's like, I don't care, I'm going to smoke. The other one doesn't smoke, but, it becomes like a risk for their secret. But then the other thing too is, I think their ideals and their ways of seeing life, so their objectives are different. One of them really wants to find that artist who's going to capture her body in a painting. The other one just wants the money and wants to be with her fiancé. But then the other thing too is so one of them, Salima, she comes with this, she's a bit more street smart. She is more like, let's not trust anyone. Everybody's out to get us. And then the sister Fahima is more like, well, you're just too stubborn, and you don't see the good in other people. And so she's a bit more free-spirited, and they hate each other for that, because one of them thinks the other one is stupid. One of the other one thinks the other one is just being stubborn, and she doesn't know how to interact with the people. And I think that is what you just said, you don't have to, you probably don't like your sister or your brother, but you love them. And I think, when danger comes, they have to stick together. And so I think at the end, what we see is also each of them sort of going the other way, because they have that experiences where the trusting one becomes a bit more suspicious of the community, but then the other one who has only seen the bad in people start to see, well, some people can have some good in them. So it's part of also their journey through the book, I think.
And also, unlike the sisters in the other two novels, and this is not a spoiler because it's basically the opening scene, they go through a horrific incident together where, then their lives become in danger. Can you tell us what happens? So where do they have to work together, and what happens to them where they really are bound for life in this?
So they come to the city with these big dreams, of course, and each of them thinks the other one is naive, but in a way they're both naive in their dreams, thinking this city Busada is going to be, because Busada actually is in Arabic for city of joy. And so they have these ideas that, this is going to be the city of our joy. We're going to, make our dreams come true. But what they don't understand is this is a city of joy for mostly tourists. For the dancers, it is a city of horrors, because they are victims to a lot of violence from the local community, from the soldiers that are there, from the tourists, sometimes thieves, because these are also dancers who, like, you see in the cover, they have to wear all of their possessions. So all the money they make, everything, they have nowhere to leave them, so they have to wear them. And then becomes a sign of status, but also it becomes the reason why a lot of people would want to kill them or attack them to steal their jewelry. So it becomes very dangerous for them. And so at one point, as they're trying to sort of, get away from the colonial systems, trying to regularize the situation through taxes, through medical checks. So there's a colonel in the city who is sort of like the villain, and he has this task force to go sort of like, to actually go find these women who are doing this. So we open the book with them having just killed the soldier in self-defense, because this soldier tries to rape one of them, and then so they kill him in self-defense. So we open with that scene. But it's just one of many horrific experiences that they go through in the city, and it does bond them together. At one point, Salima, just after calling her sister a stupid fool, she goes like, well, she's not strong enough to go through that. I should be going through that sort of like horrific experience. So in a way, they're really defending each other out there and trying to be for each other.
What I found so remarkable, even when the sisters in your novels do not go through, they also encounter very difficult situations that they have to navigate. Luckily, not murder, but they have this kind of love-hate relationship, but they have intuitions about each other. And I wonder how conscious was that when you were, because there are so many moments in these two novels where the sisters kind of, they just read the other. Is that something that you experience in your own life with siblings, or is this something that sort of subconsciously slipped into it, or did you really consciously work on creating these moments of communication and connection that are almost like intuition? They are subliminal, they are not conscious.
I think when you love someone, you carry them with you. Love makes you carry people with you. So you carry their smell, you carry their pain, you carry their joy. When you love someone, you can almost telepathically tell when something is wrong with them and you're not in the same place with them. That's when you truly love someone. Something goes off with your day. So with sisters, especially those that grew up together, there will be times when you will be like, something is wrong, I'm not quite sure what it is. And then you check and then you find out that maybe your sibling is sick and they're not in the same state with you. So regardless of how you feel about someone that you love, love is such a powerful emotion that you would have no choice than to feel what they're feeling, which is why you see that when she makes that announcement that she wants to fix her butt, she looks at her sister and she sees that her nose flares up, but she has a poker face. Her face is like, you're not going to read my expression. But she knows that announcement has upset her, because it's almost like, how did we get here? Now, the reason why I wrote Bum Bum, like I said, it's a response to a traumatic experience that happened to a loved one who had been bullied online many times over her body type. That was 10 years ago or thereabout. And so she had made this decision to do something to her body. And then I found out about it much later. So I remember even at that point, even though I was not there, knowing that had happened to her, I carried that pain for nearly 10 years. Until I wrote Bum Bum, that stayed with me. So imagine for siblings what it is. So there's this thing that when you love people, you just carry them with you. Even when you break up with someone you love, you can still smell them, especially when the relationship was really deep. And you know when you pass through something, you're like, my mom was just here, or, well, this person, you have a shirt that reminds me of my dad's, it's just something. So you carry people with you. So it's easy. That's the thing with siblings. And everything they go through, you go through, even when you hate them, so.
To Damilare's point, there's a thing that it keeps appearing on my social media feeds. I don't know if it's me. To be known is to be loved. And I think that is what is happening with the siblings. Because even though Zola and Tobile don't know each other well enough to be able to read micro expressions, because they love each other, they do subconsciously know each other well. Because Tobile knows Zola from a distance. She admires her sister more than directly loves her, because they shared a room, fine, whatever, but when Zola came into her own, she was gone. But Tobile knows Zola and loves Zola enough to know that if the chips are down, she's the one to protect me. She's got my back. And it also reflects in the mother's relationship with her sister, because there's also Nomsebenzi and Mina, who have a comical, kind of competitive relationship, because they're grown women, they're both single mothers, but they're competitive in the things they want for their daughters. And they can kind of read each other. Mina knows that when she over-disciplines, Nomsebenzi's got her back. So she feels comfortable enough almost to be wild and shout at her daughter and say the most outrageous things, because she knows Nomsebenzi has got her back and won't allow her to take it too far. So it's, yeah, to be a sister is to be known and to be loved, whether it's a biological sister, your sister in the workplace, because Oguhle and Zola are rivals, but in many ways they do have a sort of sisterhood, a camaraderie in the workplace as just women navigating relationships and success and the world in general. So they've also got kind of a sisterhood where Oguhle also goes wild and knows that Zola will look after my company, I'm gonna go be in love now. And Zola in the same space, in as much as she shouldn't trust Oguhle, but because they've got shared experiences, they've got something in common, she's comfortable going to a foreign country where Oguhle has sent her and working for Oguhle there, trusting that everything will go well.
Yeah. We have reached the time when we are opening to the floor for questions, so please don't be shy. Think about your own wonderful siblings and the kind of things that you might want to know about fictional ones. Okay, while you are thinking of your questions, there is one that I would love to ask, and I need to pay tribute to my sibling. I only have a brother, but he is the best brother in the world, sorry. But I've always wondered, and thinking about siblings and thinking about your books, I thought, I would like to have these characters as my siblings. I would, because they really stand up for each other and they have each other's back. And even when they go through tough times, that deep love is quite amazing. And it's something that carries one through one's life. But I wondered, if you had the opportunity to choose a fictional character, it might be one of yours, but from world literature, whom would you like to have as a sister? I know it would be Anne of Green Gables for me, even though she was an orphan. Yeah.
That's a tough one.
It is.
Well, maybe it will come to you, but we do have a question from the audience here.
Hi, thank you so much for this panel. I think so many things that you said resonated with many of us who have siblings. I have a bit of a weird, maybe unfair question. I like weird, unfair questions. And so you've told us how much, we have a sense of how much of your own experiences of siblinghood, not autobiographically, but just kind of a sensibility, you put into these novels from your responses. And I wonder whether any of your actual siblings have read these novels and what they, if anything, what they had to say about aspects of the novels. And then, in the spirit of being unfair, I was wondering also whether you could give us, sorry, Karina, like, I don't know, maybe read like a paragraph or something from each of your novels, so that we get another sense of the voices of the siblinghood and sisterhood in the novels. Unfair because you didn't prepare for it.
Yeah.
We on purpose chose not to, but yeah, while they're answering the first question, I can quickly have a look.
Can I go first? It's easy for me. The first one, I wrote my book in English, which is not the common language to write in Algeria, and so only one of my brothers could probably read the book, and I forbade him from reading it. It's like, do not read it. I don't think I'm ready for him to read the horrors that are in my book. So no.
So my siblings have not read it, but my mom. So what she did, she sat through one of the sessions, so she heard a bit about the book, so she started reading. So I remember one time I was on a call with her, and then she called. She said, "Did something happen to you when you were younger?" And so immediately I said, "Mom, this is not about me." She said, "Okay." Then maybe like 3 weeks later, she was calling. She said, "Hey, so maybe there was, that thing you said in the book." I said, "Mommy, this book is not about me." So I think my mother is just a little worried. She's almost done with the novel, so she wants to be sure that nothing happened to me. And I keep telling her, "I am not Tammy. I'm not Tammy." So yeah.
So my brother and my cousins and my aunts have read the books, and I did kind of pester them for like reviews. And how they've felt about it is they are seeing themselves sometimes when I have not intentionally written them in there, but I've been confronted. I've had WhatsApps, angry WhatsApps. I've had phone calls, and yeah, where people see themselves, and even when the book is not written to judge that character, they see their own actions and judge themselves. So, and then assume that it's you. And I guess that's another aspect of siblinghood, right? I can ascribe my thoughts to my siblings and be angry at them for something I have decided.
Okay, so if I may ask you to read this paragraph here.
Okay. Only Big Bamba matters tomorrow. I'm reading from the chapter, Temi is a Blackboard. Ladu and Mami could easily be mistaken for twins. They wore matching Ankara styles, body-fitting gowns with ashoke adorning the front of their dresses. Although grief had given her a hunched back, Mami's beauty was the kind you had to take in slowly and repeatedly to be sure she was not a drawing. Graceful as a swan, Ladu was fair-skinned. She was not fair-skinned like your mother, but she also wasn't the color of the night as you were. She had your mother's face, but all her mannerisms were your father's. Trust Ladu to steal the shine, even after many years of being away. Your face was a perfect mix of your parents, and thankfully, you took each of their best features. Your father's full lips and sleepy cat-like eyes, and your mother's pointed nose and brownish pinkish lips, but it didn't make people stare at you the way they stared at Mami and Ladu. If you didn't love your sister so much, you would have hated her.
Thank you.
Okay. I want to build Mom a big house with a brick fence. I want a car. I want my own place. I want so many things, Toby, and I'm starting to feel like I won't get any of them. The words poured out of Zola. She'd planned to let Tobile stew in her disappointment, not tell her her dreams, but something had snapped. Tobile squeezed Zola's hand. You should hear how Nomsebenzi brags about you. Every now and then, I join her, Tobile giggled. Zola held in a smile. What do you say? She baited. I tell my friends about my jet-setting sister doing big things across the globe. I'm so proud of you. Tobile stretched and yawned. Zola snuggled closer to Tobile. And you reek of beer.
This is the first scene where the sisters arrive in Bosada. So maybe from here to the end here.
Okay, cool. Everyone, yeah?
Yeah.
Everyone in Busada would try and take a part of your earnings, Sadia warned. The cafe owners would keep a share of your hard-earned income. The house matrons would charge you for rent and more if you brought a client over. Even the French military would take taxes. Fahima didn't understand the difference between money and taxes. And with two sisters working, those thirsty leeches would be making a fortune on their backs. But Fahima and Salima looked so identical they could easily fool the whole town into believing there was only one of them. That way, they would only pay for one sister while they earned double.
Mm. So I think we have time for one more question. The mic is coming.
Good afternoon. Thank you for your books. I'd like a comment or a suggestion on a dynamic where a parent or parents have a clear favorite child and how siblings can guard against letting that get between them.
Can I?
Yeah.
I think of course, not in the book, but that's a conversation we have a lot at home. And so my mom, if you ask her any question, she would not admit. She would say, it's just like, trying to cut off one finger from your hand. I'm like, yeah, it's easy, there's the one. But in the same conversation, she would say there's no mother in the world who would have a favorite. But in the same conversation, she would think her own mom had the favorites. And so I think it's just something that parents don't like to admit. But, in our home, it's clear that, the eldest and the youngest are the favorites for my mom. The ones in the middle are our dad's favorites. So it's very clear for us. We know how that relationship works, except the parents wouldn't admit it.
So with Bum Bum, everyone kind of feels like Ladun, the child that's left the home, was the favorite because she... the father would take her farming and all of that. Even though Nigerian parents don't like to admit that they have a favorite. But you see, the child that does most of the chores and the child you take along most times is the child you prefer. Because I could be at home and you're choosing not to take me. You're taking someone else. So that's the person you prefer. So Ladun was kind of the favorite, even though Temi was favored as well. But and interestingly, so when you pick the book, you would find that even though Ladun was favored, there's a twist to it. So she was the favorite child, and I think most times I found that our parents pick the child that they feel like they have to compensate the most for. Either the one that they went through a lot to give birth to the child, or the one that there's always something that makes them endearing, that makes them get attached to that child. They are compensating for something. You see the child that they just treat like, that one didn't stress them. That's not the one that they went through a lot to give birth to. You will find there's always a story with the favorite child, yeah.
I think it fluctuates. And when we all think the other sibling is the favorite. With Zola and Tobile, when Zola was away, Nomsebenzi was bragging about Zola. But when Zola's there, Nomsebenzi is talking about how Tobile is more affectionate towards her. This is my child. You are just this other woman in this house. So it just depends on who you are. Whoever you are is whoever you think is not the favorite. But your siblings will always be the favorite. It's a rivalry. It's a weird rivalry where you're competing for your parents' love. And I think they also love each sibling more depending on the situation. Like once you've gotten an A in your maths test, you're the favorite today. But tomorrow, your sister's going to sweep the yard and she'll be the favorite on that day.
I am certain that my brother is the favorite and I don't mind. I adore him too.
So if I could add, I think there's just a beautiful saying that I like in Arabic, which roughly translates into mothers always favor the youngest until they mature, the sick until they recover, and the one who's away until they come back. And I think that sort of goes with the fluctuation. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for writing these incredible stories. Thank you for sharing them with us, for making us connect in such beautiful ways. And thank you for being here. Thank you also for the sponsors. And thank you, Open Book, because they really create spaces that you cannot find anywhere else. So thank you.
Thank you.